district, I can remember the times when we did not have the public safety that we deserve. You know, they say that violence, especially in communities that are predominantly black, is endemic. We don't know how to manage ourselves and police ourselves. And we know that's false. So one of the things is trying to determine what is the right level of police engagement. And here's the thing, we can't say that we are going to dismantle the police, for sure, because we have areas where we need safety. If you've ever seen a family that's come into interdiction, I'll give you two examples of gun violence that really made it real to me. I have a very dear friend who is so happy to celebrate their 35th birthday because people in their families, especially men, did not make their 35th birthdays and had fallen victim to gun violence. Another example is watching how we manage the trauma that's involved with gun violence. A friend of mine was on her way to pick up one of her grandchildren to proceed with an overnight visit. You know, so they were going to have friends at a sleepover at another location. The child calls, well, the teenager calls and says, "Nana, there's a shooting." And she repeated to him, "So you know what the instructions are. You are to lock the front door. You are going to go to the middle of the apartment. Do not make any noise and do not answer that door even if they knock on it." So what is this telling me? This is in a public housing community. That is a real and regular occurrence, right? So imagine how this teenager, who was 14 at the time, feels about interacting with the police, right? And more importantly, the mother, the nana, could not find her oldest child who was wearing the clothing that the person who had been shot was wearing and could not reach it. So understand this navigation. There were two other young children in the car. The teenager did not want to alarm the children. So you're living in everyday trauma. That should not be the case. So you can understand why we are mistrustful of the police as a whole. And as a person who's a law-abiding citizen who has done everything the quote-unquote right way, I don't always feel comfortable when I interact with the police. And I have to tell you this, right? I'm surprised. I should not be surprised when I'm treated with respect. And that's not all police officers, but there are too many police officers. So working with that balance, we have to have public safety. I have to be able to walk down the street and not have to fear for my life, right? And the thing is, we're approaching the season where you have to think, was that a firecracker or was that a gunshot? And when you have children playing, because we had been in a state, I remember in the 80s, where you did not see children in playgrounds for fear of that random gunfire. And are we approaching that season again? So we have to have the trust of the community. We have to have the presence of police. Now listen, police interaction, especially when there's issues of mental health, NYPD already has social workers, some of whom are licensed medical social workers, which means they can provide psychiatric care. Because with the pandemic, there were mental issues before. But with the pandemic, every one of us is walking around with some measure of anxiety. But what you're now seeing is you're seeing the mentally ill in a more prominent position. We already know there's certain train lines that when you get on the train, you're going to interact with somebody who's mentally ill. So we really have to think about how do we provide this care? And it also extends to who goes to prison. Why should someone who's mentally ill because they committed some sort of act automatically go to prison and not receive treatment? Because when they are let out of prison, when they're released, we still have the same problems.
Thank you for that. Now, given the ever